Have you ever pondered the origins of humanity? Undoubtedly, the religious narrative offers a detailed account of creation and the emergence of mankind. But what if there exists an alternative tale, one that diverges from everything we think we know? A tale laced with hints of bewildering secrets and knowledge only recently uncovered, some of which remain unsolved riddles, where myths and legends intertwine with tangible clues and evidence. Yet the pressing question remains, could the ancient world have been more advanced than our present one? Are the accounts we possess of the ancient world truths or deliberate fabrications? Prepare to embark on a journey that may forever alter your perception of ancient civilizations and the entire history of humankind. But remember our first covenant. Let your gaze remain fixed upon the heavens, lest you lose your way. For the paths are manifold and tangled, yet they all, in the end, converge upon a single immutable truth. The Sumerian tablets have long remained an enigma to researchers, not only because they recount the arrival of the Anunnaki from the planet Nibiru to Earth, but also for their detailed account of how these beings allegedly engineered modern man. Zacharias Sitchin, the translator of these ancient texts, claims that the Anunnaki descended upon Earth approximately 450,000 years ago, in search of gold, specifically in the region known today as Africa. Their most significant mining hub, he notes, was located in what we now call Zimbabwe, an area the Sumerians referred to as Abzu, meaning the deep repository. From bases in the Middle East, the extracted gold was then transported back to their home planet. I believe there is far more to uncover regarding this gold mining narrative, yet I am not convinced it was the true reason behind their arrival, if indeed they came at all. According to Sitchin, the laborious excavation was initially carried out by what he terms the working class of the Anunnaki. However, following a rebellion among these workers, the ruling elite resolved to engineer a new race of servants to take over the task. The tablets describe in vivid detail the fusion of Anunnaki and human genes within a test tube, giving rise to modern man, designed to bear the burden of toil. At the time of their discovery in 1850, the notion of test tube children was dismissed as ludicrous, even laughable. Yet, this is precisely what modern science is now capable of. Though the tale may seem fantastical, with each passing day, contemporary research lends increasing support to the themes and accounts preserved in the Sumerian texts. For instance, modern science still fails to explain the sudden and dramatic leap in human evolution that occurred some 200,000 years ago. Mainstream academia remains conspicuously silent on the cause of this transformation, muttering vague phrases like the missing link and offering little else. And yet, there are facts too stark to be ignored. Suddenly, Homo erectus, a primate-like figure, underwent a profound metamorphosis into what we now recognize as Homo sapiens, a being capable of complex language and possessing a markedly enlarged brain. It is worth noting that the renowned biologist Thomas Huxley once asserted that such profound changes typically require tens of millions of years to occur. This implies that the ape-like hominid, who emerged in Africa around 1.5 million years ago, remained unchanged for eons, until quite abruptly, a dramatic transformation took place some 35,000 years ago, culminating in the form of modern humanity. Once again, David Icke challenges the theory of evolution, attempting to expose its inability to explain how mankind suddenly, or within an incredibly brief span, attained its current form. In his view, the gaping void left by evolutionary theory is filled by the notion that modern humans were genetically engineered in laboratories by the Anunnaki, as described in the ancient Sumerian tablets. A truly perplexing idea. Yet what is even more baffling is that many non-believers find the truth blazing before their eyes, radiant as the sun, yet choose to ignore it, preferring instead to search for it in dark recesses. From one burrow to the next, they chase shadows, until their minds are lost within endless, winding corridors of obscurity. Incidentally, David Icke is not an atheist in the traditional sense. He follows no established religion, nor does he accept any religious doctrine. Rather, he regards religion as a tool crafted to subjugate humanity. He describes himself as spiritual and affirms his belief in higher cosmic forces. A similar conviction is held by Zecharia Sitchin, the translator of the tablets, who is never known to adhere to any specific religious faith. The Sumerian tablets go on to elaborate upon the two figures central to the creation of the slave race: the chief scientist, Enki, meaning Lord of the Earth, and the medical expert Nin-Harsag, also known as Nini, which translates to Lady of Life. She would later be referred to as Mommy, from which the universal term Mama, used to address mothers across nearly all languages, is believed to have derived. In Mesopotamian iconography, Nin-Harsag is symbolized by an instrument resembling a horseshoe, used to sever the umbilical cord. She would go on to be revered as the mother of the gods in various ancient religions, under names such as Semiramis, Isis, Prati, Diana, Mary, and others. The tablets describe how Enki and Nin-Harsag repeatedly failed in their attempts to determine the correct genetic combination. Accounts speak of their creation of flawed beings, hybrids bearing the traits of both humans and animals. This mirrors the clandestine genetic experiments said to occur today in covert human research facilities across the globe. The tale of Frankenstein, the man born in a laboratory, is perhaps emblematic of these very themes. It penned by Mary Shelley, wife of the renowned poet Percy Shelley. The story was born from the imagination of two prominent members of a secret society believed to have safeguarded and concealed such ancient knowledge through the ages. Enki and Nin-Harsag persevered until they seemingly discovered the correct genetic formula, resulting in the first modern human, whom the Sumerians named Lulu. He was a genetic hybrid, the product of merging an animal-like being with the divine essence of the gods. This Lulu is the Adam of the Torah, the first human fashioned as a kind of human worker bee, some 200 to 300,000 years ago. A female counterpart was also created, named Lu by the Sumerians, meaning servant. Thus began the lineage of modern humanity. Yet it is likely that a misinterpretation of symbolic language led to a flawed translation of the Torah, obscuring its original and intended meaning and giving rise to a mythical narrative. The Levites, priests of the Hebrew tradition, are believed to have composed Genesis and Exodus after arriving in Babylon around 586 BCE. Since Babylon stood upon Sumerian soil, it follows that the Babylonians, and by extension the Levites, were familiar with Sumerian myths and narratives, sources from which Genesis and Exodus were likely compiled. The origin is unmistakable, and the parallels between Sumerian stories and the biblical text are striking. The tablets speak also about Eden, the dwelling place of the righteous, or the seed of the Anunnaki gods, the very same name used in Genesis to describe paradise. They also recount the story of King Sargon the Elder, who, like Moses, was discovered in a basket upon the river and raised within a royal household. In contrast, the book of Exodus recounts the story of the prophet Moses, peace be upon him, who was discovered by a princess in a basket upon the river and raised within the confines of the Egyptian royal household. The list of coincidences and parallels is remarkably extensive. The Old Testament stands as a quintessential example of religious repetition, a recycling of earlier myths that gave birth to all faiths. Therefore, in seeking the original and authentic meaning behind the book of Genesis and the story of Adam, one must turn to the Sumerian narratives to understand how these accounts were revised and reinterpreted. For instance, Genesis claims that God created the first man, Adam, from the dust of the earth and fashioned the first woman, Eve, from one of his ribs. However, Zechariah Sitchin suggests that the phrase, dust of the earth, is derived from the Hebrew word tit, which in turn originates from the Sumerian term te, meaning life. Thus, Adam was not created from dust or soil, but from life, more precisely from living cells. Moreover, the Sumerian word ti holds a dual meaning. It signifies both rib and life. Yet, once again, translators chose the erroneous interpretation. According to the Sumerians, the human ovum used to create Lulu, or Adam, was taken from an African woman. Modern anthropology and fossil evidence suggest that the earliest form of Homo sapiens, the anatomically modern human, did indeed originate in Africa. In 1980, Douglas Wallace of Emory University in Georgia compared the DNA of 800 women and concluded that they all descended from a single ancestral female. Similarly, Wesley Brown, after analyzing the DNA of 21 women from genetically diverse backgrounds around the world, asserted that they too shared a common origin in a woman who lived in Africa between 180,000 and 300,000 years ago. Rebecca Cann, of the University of California, conducted a similar study on 147 women from varied racial and geographical origins and determined that their genetic heritage could be traced to a single ancestral mother. A separate study of 150 American women from European, African, and Middle Eastern lineages reached the same conclusion, that they all descend from the same woman, who lived in Africa between 140,000 and 290,000 years ago. Personally, I believe that the human race bears seeds from multiple sources, not solely from the Anunnaki. It is important to note that this discussion revolves around the attempt to establish that the books of Genesis and Exodus are derived from Sumerian tablets, and that a mistranslation led to the belief that Adam was created from dust and Eve from his rib. Interestingly, this belief aligns with the Islamic narrative as well. On this basis, some have gone so far as to question the authenticity of the Quran, suggesting it was borrowed from ancient Sumerian texts and traditions, as if the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, who never ventured beyond the bounds of the Arabian desert, were a scholar of archaeology, paleontology, and anthropology, traversing the earth to collect these tales. Hence, one must be wary not to fall into the logical fallacy that presents a distorted picture, portraying the Sumerian tablets as predating the divine scriptures, which, according to scholars, is factually accurate in terms of historical chronology, and therefore positioning them as the source from which holy books were derived. The fallacy here lies in the assumption that religion did not exist on earth from the very beginning. Thus, if these tablets and others like them are authentic, they are more likely reflections of the original truth. Truth that was later distorted over time, or as previously mentioned, tainted by human excess, or more precisely, by satanic deviation. The Sumerian tablets, along with the Akkadian narratives, also referred to one known as Anu among the Akkadians, who was regarded as the god of the heavens and the highest among the deities. He resided predominantly in the heavens alongside his consort Untu, and descended to earth only on rare occasions. This description may also suggest that Anu dwelled primarily in the lofty mountains of the Near East, and visited the plains of Sumer only sporadically. In later times, Anu dispatched two of his sons to cultivate and govern the earth, Enki, who, according to the texts, created humankind, and his half-brother Enlil. However, the two became fierce rivals, each striving for absolute dominion over the earth. The tablets also describe how the Anunnaki fashioned ruling bloodlines to govern humanity on their behalf, Lineage is referred to as Anuship, meaning rulers of the gods. In my view, these are the very same dynasties that continue to dominate the world to this day, often known as the Brotherhood families, comprising the royal houses, the European aristocracy, and the so-called Eastern establishment. They all stem from the same tribe, bound by genetic ties, and are obsessively preoccupied with lineage and genetic purity, hence their insular marriage practices, regardless of love or personal desire. Much like the Anunnaki, who intermarried strictly within their kind, not merely out of arrogance or elitism, but to preserve a specific genetic structure that granted them unique capabilities, particularly the ability to shapeshift and assume different forms. I shall elaborate on this matter later. For now, let us return once again to the Sumerian tablets, which describe how Enki bestowed upon humans the ability to reproduce, leading to a sharp increase in their numbers, which eventually posed a threat to the Anunnaki, who were relatively few. Simultaneously, the Anunnaki experienced internal rifts and conflicts, engaging in wars among themselves. Documents that support Zecharia Sitchin's translations, along with ancient religious texts foundational to Hinduism, known as the Vedas, contain multiple accounts of gods waging wars against one another in their quest to control the earth. The Sumerian tablets indicate that the sons of the gods, descendants of Enki and Enlil, the rival half-brothers, played pivotal roles in these conflicts. Their offspring led these battles, employing advanced technologies. One such battle appears to have been the conflict that led to the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, cities that are also mentioned in the Torah. These cities are believed to have been situated south of the Dead Sea, a region that today exhibits radiation levels above the natural background. According to the Torah, it was in this very region that Lot's wife turned back and was transformed into a pillar of salt. But referring to the original Sumerian account, Sitchin argues that the correct translation is that she became a pillar of vapor, a version that appears far more plausible. The narrative here, of course, centers around the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, one of the most prominent religious accounts found in the Old Testament and also mentioned in the Quran. The two cities were renowned for their moral depravity. When God Almighty decreed their destruction, he commanded his prophet Lot, peace be upon him, to flee with his family under the cover of night and not to look back. Yet Lot's wife did turn around, and for this disobedience, she was punished along with the doomed cities. However, it speculates that the destruction of these cities was in fact the result of a war among the sons of the Anunnaki gods. The Sumerian tablets then proceed to recount the tale of the Great Flood, an event echoed across nearly all ancient civilizations and religions. According to Zecharia Sitchin, the tablets describe how the Anunnaki departed Earth aboard flying vessels, while a cataclysmic deluge engulfed the human population. Without doubt, one or more tremendous disasters befell the Earth between 11,000 and 4,000 years before Christ. Geological and biological evidence strongly supports the occurrence of such cataclysms. References to these upheavals are found across diverse traditions, from Asia and Europe to Scandinavia and Russia, from Africa to the Americas, Australia, New Zealand, China, Japan, and the Middle East. Some of these narratives speak of immense heat that caused the seas to boil, mountains spewing fire, the vanishing of the sun and moon, the ensuing darkness and rains of blood, ice, and stones. They describe the earth trembling, the heavens collapsing, great landmasses sinking, ice encroaching, and so forth. Nearly all of these accounts mention a massive flood or a towering wall of water sweeping across the globe. The tidal wave triggered by a meteor in the film Deep Impact offers a cinematic analogy of what may have transpired. Ancient Chinese texts speak of the collapse of the pillars that upheld the sky, of the sun, moon, and stars veering northwestward, causing the heavens to sag, while rivers, seas, and oceans surged southeastward. A vast flood extinguished an immense fire. In the Americas, the Pawnee Indians tell of a time when the northern and southern pole stars switched places. Accounts from North America speak of vast clouds amassing in the skies and of an intense heat so severe it caused the waters to boil. Early Eskimo inhabitants recounted that, in ancient times, the earth turned upside down. A Peruvian legend tells of a time when the lands were torn apart as the heavens declared war. The Brazilian myth describes fragments of the sky plummeting to earth and exploding, annihilating all life, with heaven and earth exchanging places. The Hopi people of North America recall the ground fracturing into colossal chasms, with waters engulfing everything save for a narrow ridge of clay. All of this bears a striking resemblance to the legends of Atlantis and Lemuria, two vast continents, one believed to have existed in the Atlantic Ocean, the other in the Pacific. Many believe these continents were ruled by highly advanced races. It is said that during cataclysmic events, the continents vanished beneath the sea, leaving behind only scattered islands as remnants of their former glory. The prominent figure in esoteric circles, the ancient Greek philosopher Plato, described Atlantis as a grand, technologically sophisticated, and flourishing island beyond the Pillars of Hercules, now known as the Strait of Gibraltar. Though mainstream historians often dismiss Plato's claims, citing inconsistencies in his accounts, geological evidence lends credence to his vision. Geological and biological data suggest that massive volcanic activity submerged a portion of land in the Azores region. This coincided with the fragmentation and submergence of the landmass known as Appalachia, which once connected what we now call Europe, North America, and Iceland. Similar evidence supports the idea that the fabled continent of Lemuria now lies buried beneath the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean. The infamous Bermuda Triangle has long been linked with the lost continent of Atlantis, a region notorious for the unexplained disappearances of ships and aircraft. Within the waters of the Bahamas, inside this enigmatic triangle, researchers have identified structures, roads, and what appear to be submerged pyramids. Here are some lesser-known facts. The towering ranges of the Hindu Kush, the Alps, and the Andes only reached their current elevations approximately 11,000 years ago. Prior to that, much of these regions lay at sea level, which explains the abundance of fish fossils and other marine remnants found in high-altitude mountain strata. Moreover, there is growing acceptance of the theory that Earth underwent dramatic geological upheavals and experienced a monumental event around 11,000 years before Christ, one that obliterated the advanced civilizations of a high-tech golden age. However, this golden age is said to recur in cycles. Just as the planets orbit the sun, the solar system itself revolves around a central sun located at the heart of the galaxy, often referred to as the Black Sun. According to certain scholars, it takes the solar system approximately 26,000 years to complete an orbit around the galactic axis, a cycle known in Indian cosmology as a yuga. This suggests that for half of that cycle, 13,000 years, Earth tilts toward the Black Sun, the source of luminous energy. In the subsequent 13,000 years, it inclines away from it. As a result, Earth is immersed in positive light for one half of the cycle, then gradually descends into darkness during the other half. Remarkably, the previous Golden Age came to a cataclysmic end roughly 13,000 years ago, marked by chaos and widespread destruction. Today, as the Earth nears the dawn of the next 13,000-year phase of light, A sweeping and rapid spiritual awakening is underway across the globe. Extraordinary events lie ahead in the coming years, heralding a return to an age of illumination. Notably, David Icke employs the term black sun to refer to the center of the galaxy. While it holds no actual existence as a celestial body or a scientifically recognized phenomenon in modern astronomy, the black sun stands as a symbolic construct deeply rooted in European mythologies, spiritual philosophies, and certain esoteric movements. It has often been associated with the concept of inner light, or a hidden sun representing esoteric knowledge and spiritual illumination. Moreover, the black sun frequently appears in literature as an emblem of mystery or an unseen force, intertwined with ideas of cosmic catastrophes or malevolent energies. Some theorists have even proposed that the black sun is a literal sun situated within the Earth's core, directly linked to the North Star. This connection, they claim, generates Earth's magnetic field. As evidence, they point to the phenomenon of the aurora borealis, commonly known as the northern lights or aurora. According to such interpretations, Mount Meru, believed to lie at the Earth's center, is not a physical mountain but a metaphor for a powerful magnetic field. Its depiction as emerald in color is seen as a visual embodiment of the northern lights. It appears that a cataclysmic event took place 13,000 years ago, bringing a dramatic end to the advanced civilizations of the Golden Age. But was it the only catastrophe? Evidently not. In the 1960s, independent studies conducted by physicists suggested that a massive celestial body, what we now know as Jupiter, entered our solar system around 4,800 years before Christ. It is believed to have collided with a planet that once orbited between present-day Jupiter and Mars. This collision likely shattered the planet, giving rise to the asteroid belt. A fragment of the destroyed world is thought to have become what we now call Venus. During this cataclysm, Mars's atmosphere was obliterated, and Venus circled the Earth repeatedly before settling into its current position within the solar system. According to physicists, it was these celestial revolutions that unleashed the widespread devastation on Earth. This theory is bolstered by the fact that the most ancient records from Mesopotamia and Mesoamerica make no mention of Venus, implying the planet's appearance came later. Although these studies remain unofficial and unpublished, some of their assertions are worth reflection. Researcher Brian Desborough claims Venus was once an ice-encased comet. As it approached Earth, its icy shell disintegrated. Upon reaching the Van Allen radiation belts, which absorb much of the sun's harmful emissions, Venus fragmented further, eventually being drawn in by Earth's magnetic poles. Thus, billions of tons of ice, colder than -273 degrees Celsius, fell upon the polar regions, instantly freezing them. This, he argues, explains the discovery of frozen mammoths in these regions, creatures that once grazed temperate grasslands. It also clarifies why the polar ice caps are disproportionately massive compared to regions with higher snowfall or precipitation levels, which could not have produced such glacial volumes naturally. Furthermore, ancient maps of both the North and South Poles depict them without ice, dating back roughly 7,000 years. This challenges the mainstream narrative of an ice age, which now appears to be yet another illusion. When we scrutinize the evidence presented by conventional science in support of an ice age, we are astonished at how an illogical idea became an accepted truth. Before this abrupt transformation, Earth's climate was uniformly tropical, as revealed by fossilized plant life. The shift occurred when ice struck the Earth's surface, obliterating the vapor canopy that once enveloped the planet It provided a consistently warm climate, one that vanished without warning. Physicists have also posited that the gravitational pressure generated by Venus's orbit around Earth produced a tidal wave towering over 10,000 feet high in the oceans. This aligns with evidence indicating that agriculture began at altitudes of 10,000 feet or more. In his work Laws, Plato noted that farming originated at high elevations following a great deluge that submerged the lowlands. Botanist Nikolai Ivanovich Vavilov studied over 50,000 wild plant species across the globe and discovered that they stemmed from 8 distinct regions, all mountainous terrains. It is conceivable that this massive tidal force exerted a pressure of 2 tons per square inch on Earth's surface, spawning new mountain ranges and fossilizing everything within hours. Moreover, the Russian Jewish psychiatrist and writer Immanuel Velikovsky suggested that Earth underwent vast upheavals when Venus passed through the solar system as a comet before settling into its present orbit. His description of the planet was validated by images captured during the Mariner 9 and 10 missions. Velikovsky claimed that Venus collided with Mars during its passage through the solar system, dating the event to approximately 1,500 years before Christ. According to Brian Desborough, Earth's proximity to the Sun required the first human race to possess black skin in order to endure the Sun's intense rays. Ancient skeletal remains found in England and along the western coast of France reveal vertebral and nasal features consistent with African women. Furthermore, the white race is said to have lived on Mars, whose climate once mirrored Earth's prior to the chaos triggered by Venus. These early Martians waged wars against the black race to conquer Earth, conflicts that echo the divine wars repeatedly recounted in ancient texts. Desborough contends that the Martians who settled on Earth following the Great Cataclysm became the Caucasian race, the advanced people of the ancient world known as the Phoenicians or Aryans. This implies that a white Martian lineage was responsible for constructing the Egyptian civilization, and that the legendary tales of King Arthur are entwined with this narrative. The name of the castle, Camelot, seemingly derives from a term meaning the city of the Martians or Mars. I believe there is a kernel of truth in the perspective regarding the upheavals that Earth endured between 11,500 years before the Common Era. The first of these upheavals brought the Golden Age to an end and obliterated advanced civilizations. Yet some of those who arrived from space departed prior to these calamities, or remained but relocated to lofty heights or delved into the Earth's depths, while majority perished alongside most of humanity. The survivors bore the burden of restarting civilization without the advanced technologies that once flourished. These survivors split into 2 factions. The first comprised those from another planet endowed with advanced and sophisticated knowledge, and the second were the native humans. Moreover, the first faction further divided into 2 camps. One sought to employ their knowledge benevolently, sharing wisdom with humanity, while the other sought to hoard knowledge, wielding it to control and dominate mankind. Thus, a conflict erupted over the use of this knowledge, a struggle that endures to this day. As societies endeavored to reclaim their existence after the upheavals of 11,000 years ago, further disturbances ensued, bringing destruction that spanned millennia. Consequently, humanity was compelled to begin anew, repeatedly. Yet the single constant throughout this era was the manipulation of humanity by one or more advanced races. In this regard, I must introduce an additional dimension to this account, one that will challenge your capacity for belief beyond the point of no return. You might consider the preceding narrative to be intriguing, bizarre, or even fantastical, or perhaps mere speculation grounded in evidence that falls short of definitive proof. Yet, hold your patience, for the true revelation has yet to unfold. Remain steadfast and remember our initial pact. Never lose your compass under any circumstance, so that together we may reach a place of safety.